I'm not as good of a speaker, some of my brothers are. He performed this for us last night, and we were all in awe. He's such a good writer, such a good speaker. He's just like Cameron in that way. Anytime he gets up in front of people, he just performs, whether it's on a stage or on a pulpit or anything like that. Um, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Emily Ward. I'm Cameron's little sister. And if you know me, that's not a title that I was fond of. I didn't like being known as someone's little sister for any of my brothers. I wanted to be known for who I am and not for who my brothers are. But over the past week, I've now realized that when people called me Cameron's little sister, it was nothing short of a compliment. This year, when I started my first semester at UVU, I would introduce myself to the upperclassmen in my program. I would say, "Hi, my name is Emily." Super excited, but I was terrified. I was so scared, and as any college freshman would be, I would then add, "I'm Cameron Ward's little sister." And 100% of the time they would go, "Oh my gosh, I love Cameron." Even though most people didn't know me when I first got to UVU, I could always count on them knowing my brother, which gave me the street cred around the hallways. Cameron and I were both in the musical theater BFA at UVU. We were in the same program. We had all the same classes together. That's what made us closer. As when he graduated high school and when I graduated, we still got to go to school together and see each other all the time. Um, we were both working to get our bachelors in fine arts. Although at first I wasn't thrilled to be sharing classes with my older brother, it definitely made starting college a whole lot easier, just knowing that he would be there with me in my classes. This is not the first time that we've shared a school, though. We're at Highland Elementary together for many years, then came to junior high at Mountain Ridge, and then went to high school at Lone Peak together. We were always at the school at least for 1 year. Um, in high school, that's where things started to change. As an incoming sophomore, I was lucky enough to audition for the musical theater class in the productions company at Lone Peak. Cameron was a senior, so he had already been in the class for 2 years, and I was very fortunate to get into this program as a sophomore. And I knew it would be weird because going to school with my brother and being in the same class with him, that was unheard of. That was weird to me, especially in high school. And although it probably wasn't ideal for him to have his little sister there in class with him and his friends, I knew that he never minded. We did some wonderful shows that year, and I'm so lucky I got to be in these shows with my brother for his last year in high school. His senior show was Anastasia, and he played the character Gleb, for those of you who are familiar, and I was so proud of him, although I would never tell him. I would never tell him that because that's weird. I would never tell him how proud I was whenever I would hear him singing in the practice rooms or at rehearsal, or even during the show. I would sit backstage and listen to him sing his big show-stopping number. He was so perfect in that role, and for any role that he played on stage, whether it was at Lone Peak or anywhere else. If you know our family, you know that most of us eat, sleep, and breathe theater, with the exception of Ethan, who did a few shows but decided that basketball held his best interest, which is okay. My brothers and I grew up doing shows at American Fork Youth Theater, which is where it all started, AFYT, for those of you who know. But it's all thanks to Ryan. He's the one who got us on the stage first, and of course, Cameron was mesmerized by watching his older brother perform and started along the theater journey, along with me, Gavin, and Ethan. Since Cameron and I were so close in age, we did countless amount of shows with AFYT, and I have no doubt that all the youth shows we did is what sparked our passion, and I believe it's the reason why Cameron and I both chose to pursue a musical theater pathway in college. As we both got more familiar with it, we started auditioning at other youth theaters, such as the Hale Orem. Unfortunately, Cameron and I first auditioned our first show at Hale Orem. It was My Son Pinocchio Jr. Kind of a random show, but it was awesome. Unfortunately, though, it only worked out for one of us. That was me. I unfortunately, I was like 11 at the time. I remember my mom came in and told me that I was cast, and I immediately asked, "What about Cameron?" And she told me that he hadn't gotten an email and he wasn't in the show. I was so scared for my life. I felt that as the younger sister, I wasn't allowed to get into shows that he didn't get into, which is so not the truth, but I was 11. So I thought he was going to be so mad at me. He was not mad at me at all. I felt so bad about getting in that I got every single quarter, nickel, dime that I found in my room, put them all into a baggie, and left a huge Ziploc full of coins on his bed as some condolence prize for not getting in. He was very excited when he saw this, but my mom told him that he had to give it back to me because it's okay if I get some things that he doesn't get. And from that moment on, it's been a whole series of us auditioning for shows together, and one of us getting in, one of us not. But I'm grateful for that because it taught us all as siblings to be happy and supportive of each other, no matter what, in any circumstance. Going along with the subject, the last picture Cameron and I took together was us two in front of a beautiful new theater. Cameron and my boyfriend Parker were lucky enough to be in the same cast of A Christmas Carol at Hale Orem, the last show on the Hale Orem stage. And they were both invited to the grand opening of the new Rue Theater. I was Parker's plus one, and Cameron joined us for the evening. Before we went to take our seats for that show that night, Cameron said, "Hey, we should get a picture together while we're here. Mom would want us to," which is very true, because if my mom wasn't there to snap a picture of her kids, she always made sure to tell us, "Hey, take a picture and send it to me. I want it." Which is funny because this time my mom didn't ask for a picture. I think she forgot. It was all Cameron's idea because he knew that my mom would want a memory of us there. And I'm so, so glad we did. We went outside of this brand new, beautiful theater and got what I didn't know would be our last picture together just a few weeks ago. Although this was one of mine and Cameron's lasts, I want to recall some of our firsts. Some of the first memories that I can remember with him as my older brother. The first time we went to the same school, it was my first time in elementary school without Ryan being there. And Cameron was supposed to pick me up by my classroom so we could walk home together. He did not do that. He got caught up with his friends and walked all the way home without me. And I was some terrified second grader all by myself without my older brother there. Even though we only lived 5 minutes away, I knew the way home. I didn't want to go without my brother because I knew that if I did get lost, he would always be there to guide me back. I called my mom immediately and crying, telling her, "Cameron forgot me. What am I gonna do? I'm stuck here forever." I was not. They came back. It was fine. But I needed my brother there just in case, even though it was a 5-minute walk and just down the street. I needed him there. The first time we shared a room. In our old house in American Fork, I was very fond of having sleepovers in the room that Ryan and Cameron had shared. They had a bunk bed, and I always chose to sleep on Ryan's bed more because Cameron would always try and tickle me, and I did not like that. When Gavin was born, that's when I moved my bed into Ryan and Cameron's room. There was absolutely no room for my bed, but we made it work. We had less than a foot of space in between the bunk bed and my twin bed. But because we were so young, we thought it was so awesome, and we made the best of it. We would take turns jumping from the bunk bed ladder onto my bed. Maybe not the safest option, but it was so fun. Although all of us sharing a room led to the classic sibling fights, Cameron would always fill his bed with all of his stuffed animals, some of which are out in the foyer. And after our parents would put us to bed, he would turn on his lamp very sneakily and start playing with his stuffed animals, or his guys, his guys. It was not allowed, obviously. And although sometimes I wanted to join in, I got a kick out of tattling on Cameron. So Ryan or I would yell down the classic phrase to our parents, "Mom, Cameron's out of bed again. Oh, you didn't know that? That's okay. That's okay." And that just became our classic tattling catchphrase. So anytime me, Ryan, or Cameron would step out of line, this would be yelled at the top of our lungs from the top of the stairs to our parents. Our parents kind of ignored us. They knew we would go to bed sometime. But the first time he made me cry. Now, this is not meant to offend anyone, but we were finding out Gavin's gender. My parents left for the doctors, and Cameron decided that we needed to place bets. He said, "I bet you $1,000 that it's going to be a boy." And I was shocked that he would think that. Why would my mom have another boy? She already had two. So I said back to Cameron, "Well, I bet you $1,000 that it's going to be a girl." I felt very confident in the bet that I had placed. Soon enough, my parents came home with the news, and I was so excited until they announced that our new sibling would be a boy. No offense, Gavin. Not your fault. I started to sob uncontrollably. And I ran and I sat on the stairs and I was hysterical that I was going to have a baby brother. And Cameron then came. He sat by me. He put his arm around me, which is a sign of comfort. And then he leaned over and whispered in my ear, "You owe me." I did not stop crying for the rest of the day. Even in those times of hurt, he knew how to push my buttons. The first time I went into junior high, the summer before I started 7th grade, I was so scared, as any 7th grader would be. Junior high is so much bigger than elementary school, and I didn't know what to expect. Luckily, I had an older brother there to guide me through the big hallways, the lockers, and the classrooms. That summer, he offered to ride our bikes over to the junior high so I could practice opening up a locker, which was what I was the most scared for. We rode our bikes to Mountain Ridge more times than I could count. We would walk around the school, and he would tell me about things that he encountered in the school, tell me about good teachers and bad teachers, and specifically let me know how the drama program worked at Mountain Ridge, which is what I was most excited for. Even after I got more confident in opening a locker and walking through the halls, I would never turn down the offer to go to school when Cameron asked. After almost every single visit to the junior high, we made sure to ride our bikes over to Pizza Pie or Ridley's and treat ourselves with a Cookie Monster or a fresh bakery donut before we rode home. We always had to make sure that our mom was paying too. We did not have money. The first time we worked together, this is kind of more recent. For those of you who don't know, I worked as an usher at Hale Center Theater Sandy for a little over 2 years. I was not the original. Cameron started working at Hale as an usher when he was only 15 years old, and he has always been very proud of that fact that he got hired there so young. As time went on, he would tell me about all the perks he got from working there, including basically getting paid to see the shows, getting comp tickets, getting concessions vouchers, and I was sold. It sounded great to me. It sounded like an easy, awesome job. And as soon as I turned 16, I was on a hunt for a job. I worked at a few other places first because I didn't know how thrilled Cameron would be to have his little sister working with him. But then as the years went on, I decided I would apply. So I applied, I got an interview, and this is where I used Cameron's name to my advantage. I went in, and at the end of the interview, I said, "Oh yeah, like by the way, my brother works here, I think." And they were like, "Oh, it's your brother?" I'm like, "Oh, it's Cameron Ward." I knew what I was doing. They were like, "Oh, we have Cameron." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, I'm in. I'm in." Um, Fortunately enough, I was hired as an usher, and I started working with Cameron um, for many years. I've only worked there for about 2 years, but he was there every step of the way, and it was nice to work some shifts with him and just I was we would carpool, and even if I was working on the stage and he was working concessions, he'd always make sure to come say hi to me or get me a cookie, which were his favorite. Um, I know it wasn't probably ideal, but he never minded it. Now some smaller firsts in our lives. The first time I sang in my college voice class that we shared, he was the first to tell me that I did a great job. He came up to me after. I was so scared. This is my first time singing in front of people that I barely knew. And it was college, and that's scary, and this counts for credit, and I'm going to be graded on my singing. And I was a wreck. And he came up to me and very calmly said, "You were so amazing. Like, don't worry about it. Everyone's nervous." And he comforted me. He was the first one to, because he could tell that I was nervous. When we went to Disneyland one year, he was the first one to convince me to go on Pirates of the Caribbean. I don't know why that ride scared me, but it did. I was so scared, but he promised we would get Dole Whip after. So me and my mom and Cameron all went after the terrifying ride of Pirates of the Caribbean. When I moved into my first apartment, just in August, a few weeks later, he moved into the same building, just a few floors down, which some of you may not know. It just proves that even no matter where mine and Cameron's lives go, they just somehow come back together so close. He literally lived like 3 floors below me. I could go down there and borrow a pot if I needed it to make pasta, or he would come up and we would make dinner together. The first time I got a call back at a professional theater when I was 11, we had just actually come home from Mountain Ridge, practicing opening up lockers and going to Ridley's, and my parents printed out the callback list because I was one of very few to get called back. And they showed it to me. Cameron's leaning over my shoulder. He goes, "Your name's on there. That's so awesome." He gave me a big hug and a big high five because he knew how important that audition was to me, even as an 11-year-old. And he was the one who celebrated with me the most for that callback. I know there's so much more I could say about Cameron if you gave me the chance. I could talk about him nonstop. Some good things, some bad things. But it's so hard to fit my entire childhood with him into one talk. Some things that I'll miss. I'll miss his jokes. I'll miss the random and out-of-pocket noises that he makes around our house. I'll miss when he randomly starts singing at 2 a.m. and we're all trying to sleep and he's belting downstairs and we can all hear him. My mom never stopped, and though she loved to hear him sing. I'll miss when he would call me to go on late night runs for Taco Bell or McDonald's. Even though it was a pain sometimes, I'll miss sharing a car with him and having to wake him up early to drive me to work. I know he never wanted to, but he never complained because he knew that sharing a car was hard for us, especially as college students. I'm going to miss working together and afterwards calling mom to see if she'll buy us food, and she always did, whenever we asked. I'll miss him living 3 floors below me, and I'll miss being able to go down to his apartment whenever I needed something, and I'll miss him coming up to my apartment just to walk me up, just to make sure I got there safe and just to talk. I'll miss going to school with him and seeing him in the same classroom as me almost every day. And after class, talking about random and pointless things, not because they were important to talk about, but just so we could talk to each other and acknowledge each other that day. I'll miss passing him in the halls when he's with Jenny. They'll be walking and I'll say hi to them. Like, we're siblings, but we say hi to each other like, oh, hey, like just in passing, even though we're siblings. I'll miss sharing the stage with him. I would not have the love for theater that I have today without him. I'll miss seeing him on stage the most. He had such a beautiful presence when he performed. There was nothing like it. He commanded the stage and made sure everyone knew that he was there for a reason, and he worked his butt off. There were so many auditions that he got so discouraged by. And my mom was his number one supporter. My mom would say, just keep auditioning. And he did, and he moved up. And I know that he would have just kept going. I'll miss not just the things we did together, but the things we didn't do. The memories that he had with everyone. I will miss him making those memories with all of the people that so deeply care about him. As I mentioned previously, Cameron and I, along with our new sister-in-law Jenny, we're in the musical theater BFA program together at UVU. Although it will be a challenge, I'm so honored that I have the opportunity to earn my bachelor's in fine arts for the both of us. Every performance for the rest of my life will be dedicated to my brother Cameron, because he's the one who gave me the confidence to step on the stage. Going to college with him was, even just first semester, was so awesome because I knew we had the same goals. We were working towards the same degree. And I'm so excited that in the next 4 years, when I get that degree, I'll be able to use that in honor of Cameron. Although for most of this talk, I've talked about our firsts, I would like to share one more last. My last words to him were on Saturday, January 18th. And I said to him, we were on the phone. He called me. I was on a trip with my boyfriend, and he called me asking if I wanted Chick-fil-A. Nothing out of the ordinary. He would do that all the time. But the last thing I said to him was, I'll see you on Tuesday. Tuesday came, and I did not see my older brother that day. But I know that I will see him again. For now, he's being taken care of by all of my angels in heaven. My grandparents, my aunt, and my cat Sky. They never liked each other. They actually really hated each other. But I know, we were talking about this actually just a few minutes ago. I know that they'll be happy to see each other. Ryan was telling me Cameron's gonna see Sky and go, all right, I guess it's us now. They did not like each other, but I know that they'll grow to love each other over the next few years. Although those words were one of our last, I'm focusing on the first we had together. And this will be my first time living life without him, which I know will be the hardest thing I will ever have to do. But not a day will go by that I won't think about and fight for my older brother Cameron. I am proud to wear the title of Cameron's little sister. And I hope when people see me, they are reminded of the kind of person that my brother was, and I hope that they see him in me.